Confused about how fruits affect your blood sugar? You might be surprised to learn that some seemingly healthy fruits can actually spike your levels. Stay tuned to uncover which 10 fruits could be secretly sabotaging your blood sugar control, and why understanding this can help maintain a healthier lifestyle. Top 10 fruits that worsen blood sugar. Number 1, watermelon. Kicking off our list at number 1, we have watermelon. Watermelon. It's that classic summer treat we all love for being so hydrating and refreshing. But here's the catch. Watermelon has a high glycemic index, usually somewhere between 72 and 80. Now, what this means is that the carbs in watermelon turn into glucose and get absorbed into your bloodstream pretty fast, which can cause a quick jump in blood sugar. For older adults, particularly those dealing with insulin resistance or diabetes, this rapid sugar rush is a real concern. Their bodies might have a tough time handling that sudden glucose, potentially leading to hyperglycemia. This can bring on symptoms like feeling tired, extra thirsty, and needing to urinate more often. And down the road, it can contribute to problems linked to poor blood sugar control. So, what's the key here? Portion control is absolutely vital with watermelon. A small, controlled serving might be okay for some folks, but larger amounts can easily throw blood sugar levels off balance. Older adults really need to watch those serving sizes, and maybe even try pairing watermelon with foods that have protein or healthy fats to help slow down that sugar absorption. Number 2, pineapple. Coming in at number 2 is pineapple. Pineapple, that tropical delight bursting with vitamins, enzymes like bromelain, and that wonderfully sweet and tangy flavor. But even with all its nutritional goodness, it's a fruit that older adults managing their blood sugar need to be a bit careful with. You see, pineapple has a good amount of natural sugars, mostly sucrose, fructose, and glucose, which give it that sweetness. It also has a moderate to high glycemic index, typically falling between 59 and 66, and this can vary based on how ripe it is and the specific variety. And get this, the riper the pineapple, the more sugar it generally has, and the higher its GI is likely to be. So, eating pineapple, especially in big servings or when it's super ripe, can cause a pretty noticeable and often quick spike in blood glucose. For seniors whose bodies might already be struggling a bit with glucose regulation, this can definitely be an issue. Too much pineapple can just overwhelm the body's ability to process all that sugar efficiently, leading to those unwanted blood sugar ups and downs. The best approach? Enjoying pineapple in very small, carefully measured portions, and if possible, pairing it with foods that have fiber and protein to help lessen its impact. Number 3, bananas, ripe. Next up, at number 3, we have ripe bananas. Bananas are super convenient, right? A popular go-to fruit, often praised for their potassium. But here's something important. As bananas ripen, their starches turn into simple sugars, mainly sucrose, fructose, and glucose. This change makes them much sweeter and, you guessed it, bumps up their glycemic index. A really ripe banana can have a GI of 62 or even more, whereas a greener one might be down around 42. This jump in sugar and GI makes those ripe bananas a bit tricky for seniors who are carefully watching their blood glucose. Those easily available sugars in ripe bananas get absorbed quickly, leading to a sharp rise in blood sugar. For older adults with diabetes or prediabetes, this can make it harder to keep their glucose levels steady throughout the day. Now, bananas do offer good nutrients, but if blood sugar is a concern, it's better to choose less ripe, smaller bananas and really pay attention to how much you're eating. And a good tip, pairing a small bit of a less ripe banana with some protein or healthy fat like a few nuts or a spoonful of unsweetened yogurt, can help slow down sugar absorption and lessen that glycemic hit. Number 4, mango. Moving on to number 4, it's the mango. Mangoes, often called the king of fruits, are loved for their rich texture and incredibly sweet taste. They're a good source of vitamins A and C, that's true, but they also pack a fair bit of natural sugar. In fact, a medium-sized mango can have a pretty hefty amount of sugar, sometimes over 45 grams, depending on its size and type. With that much sugar, mangoes can really impact blood sugar levels, especially if you eat a lot at once. The glycemic index for mangoes is usually in the moderate range, about 51 to 56. But when you combine that with the high sugar amount per serving, it can still cause a noticeable rise in blood glucose after you eat it. So for older adults who are managing diabetes or just trying to avoid those blood sugar spikes, mango is a fruit that needs some careful thought. It's much better to enjoy just a few small slices instead of the whole fruit. And, checking your blood sugar after eating mango can help you figure out your own tolerance and adjust how much you eat to keep things in better control. Number 5, grapes. At number 5, we find grapes. Grapes are such a popular and easy snack, aren't they? They're simple to eat and often seem like a light, healthy choice. But here's a surprise. They're quite dense in natural sugars, mainly glucose and fructose. Just 1 cup of grapes can pack around 15 to 25 grams of sugar, depending on how sweet they are and the variety. That much sugar in a small amount can be a bit misleading. Because of their sugar content and how fast those sugars can get absorbed, grapes can lead to a pretty quick rise in blood sugar for some people, especially if they eat a lot of them. The glycemic index of grapes is generally moderate, usually between 43 and 53. But because it's so easy to eat a large quantity without realizing it, they become a concern for managing blood sugar. So, for older adults, particularly those with diabetes or prediabetes, portion control is absolutely essential with grapes. Instead of just grabbing them from a big bunch, it's a much better idea to count out a small serving, say, about 10 to 15 grapes, to avoid accidentally eating too many and getting that blood sugar spike. Number 6, dried fruits, raisins, dates, figs. Taking the number 6 spot are dried fruits, like raisins, dates, and figs. Now, these are often promoted as healthy snacks because they do provide fiber and nutrients. However, there's a catch. The drying process removes the water, and this concentrates the natural sugars and calories in the fruit in a big way. This means they end up being much denser in sugar by weight than fresh fruits. And this concentration really boosts their glycemic index and glycemic load. For example, raisins can have a GI anywhere from 54 to 66, and dates can range from 42 to even over 100, depending on the type and how they're processed. Just a small handful of raisins or even just 2 or 3 dates can give you a pretty big sugar hit. For older adults trying to manage their blood sugar, this makes dried fruits quite risky. Those concentrated sugars get absorbed very quickly, which can lead to sharp and often quite large spikes in blood glucose. If you do eat them, portions have to be extremely small. Honestly, it's often a smarter move for anyone with sensitive blood sugar to choose fresh fruits that have more water and fiber instead. Number 7, lychee. Next, at number 7, we have lychee. Lychee is that exotic fruit with a really unique floral scent and sweet, juicy inside. It does offer some vitamin C and other good micronutrients, but it's also quite high in sugar. Just about 100 grams of fresh lychees can have around 15 grams of sugar, which definitely puts them on the sweeter side. The wonderful taste of this tropical treat can sometimes make us forget the potential risks for older adults concerned about their glucose. Because of its sugar content, eating even a moderate amount of lychees can cause a pretty quick rise in blood sugar. Lychee's glycemic index is about 50, which is considered moderate, but when you factor in the sugar per serving, it really calls for careful thought. So seniors who are keeping an eye on their blood sugar need to be aware of portion sizes with lychees. It's much better to enjoy just a few at a time instead of a whole bowlful. And like with other sweet fruits, eating them with foods that slow down sugar absorption might help, but it's still really important to be cautious, especially for those with diabetes or prediabetes. Number 8, cherries, sweet varieties. At number 8, we're looking at sweet varieties of cherries. Cherries are often praised for their antioxidants, especially anthocyanins. Those are what give them that beautiful rich red color and offer anti-inflammatory benefits. But when we talk about blood sugar, it's important to know there's a difference between sweet cherries, like Bing or Rainier, and tart cherries, such as Montmorency. Sweet cherries simply have more natural sugars. Now, cherries generally have a moderate glycemic index, and sweet types usually fall between 62 and 63. But their sugar content can still affect blood glucose, particularly if you eat a lot of them. A cup of sweet cherries can have almost 20 grams of sugar, which is something older adults trying to keep their blood sugar stable need to consider. Even though they have health perks, seniors with diabetes or prediabetes should definitely moderate how many sweet cherries they eat. It might be better to go for smaller portions or choose tart cherries, which are lower in sugar, for more effective blood sugar management. Another tip is that pairing sweet cherries with some protein could also help soften that glucose response. Number 9, pomegranate. Next on our list at number 9 is pomegranate. Those pomegranate seeds, or arils as they're called, are absolutely packed with antioxidants, vitamins, and fiber. This makes them a really nutrient-dense food, and they're often recommended for their potential benefits to heart health. However, pomegranates also have a significant amount of natural sugars. Just 1 cup of pomegranate arils can contain about 24 grams of sugar. Now, the fiber in the seeds does help slow down sugar absorption a bit, but the total sugar content is something older adults with blood sugar concerns really need to keep in mind. The glycemic index of pomegranate fruit is around 53, which is moderate, but a large serving can still lead to a rise in glucose levels. For anyone managing diabetes, portion control is key when it comes to pomegranate. And here's a good tip. Instead of drinking pomegranate juice, which is much more concentrated in sugar and doesn't have that helpful fiber, it's better to eat a small portion of the fresh arils. That way, you get the benefits of the fiber while keeping the sugar impact on your blood glucose to a minimum. Number 10, Honeydew Melon. And rounding out our top 10 at number 10 is Honeydew Melon. Honeydew melon, with its light green flesh and gentle sweet flavor, is another popular choice among melons. Just like watermelon, it has a lot of water, but it also contains natural sugars that give it that nice taste. Its sweetness and its glycemic index mean it's a fruit you need to eat in moderation if you're aiming for stable blood sugar. The glycemic index of honeydew usually lands somewhere between 60 and 65, which is in the moderate to high range. So, eating larger servings of honeydew can cause a noticeable jump in blood sugar levels because of those easily available sugars. This can be especially tricky for older adults whose bodies might not process sugars as efficiently as they used to. To enjoy honeydew melon safely, the best bet for older adults is to stick to small portion sizes. And, similar to other fruits we've discussed, pairing it with foods that have protein or healthy fats can help slow down how quickly that sugar gets into the bloodstream, leading to a more gradual rise in glucose instead of a sudden spike. Other sections and supporting content: how fruit impacts blood sugar. So, now that we've talked about specific fruits, let's take a moment to understand a bit more about how fruit impacts blood sugar in general. When we eat any fruit, the natural sugars inside it, like fructose, glucose, and sucrose, get broken down and absorbed into our bloodstream. This naturally causes our blood glucose levels to go up. Now, how fast and how high they rise depends on a few things. These include the type and amount of sugar in that particular fruit, and very importantly, its fiber content. Fiber is a real hero when it comes to moderating our blood sugar response. Soluble fiber, especially, can slow down how we digest and absorb carbohydrates. This leads to a much more gradual increase in blood glucose rather than a sudden, sharp spike. And that's exactly why whole fruits are almost always a better choice than fruit juices, because juices usually have the fiber stripped away. What's also interesting is that how our bodies respond to the sugar in fruit can be quite different from person to person. Things like your insulin sensitivity, your overall diet, how active you are, and even the time of day can all affect how your body handles fruit sugars. That's why keeping an eye on your own levels through personal monitoring can be so important for understanding what works best for you and your tolerance. Safe fruit choices for older adults. Now, it might sound like a lot of fruits are off limits, but the good news is there are many safe fruit choices for older adults. While some fruits, as we've seen, can be tricky for blood sugar, plenty of others are fantastic options. Take berries, for instance. Strawberries, blueberries, raspberries. These are generally lower in sugar and have a low glycemic index, usually below 40. Plus, they're loaded with fiber and antioxidants, which makes them incredibly beneficial. Apples and pears are also great choices, especially if you eat them with the skin on. They give you a good dose of fiber, which helps with that slower sugar release, and they have a moderate GI, typically between 30 and 40. These types of fruits can provide sustained energy without causing those dramatic blood sugar spikes. So, when you compare them to the high GI fruits we talked about earlier, these safer alternatives offer essential nutrients while being much gentler on your blood glucose. Making it a point to choose fruits with a lower glycemic index and more fiber is a really smart approach for older adults who want to maintain better metabolic health. Strategies for managing blood sugar with fruit. So, how can you enjoy fruit while still managing your blood sugar effectively? Well, it's definitely achievable with a few smart strategies for managing blood sugar with fruit. First and foremost, always remember portion control. Even the healthiest fruits can cause blood sugar spikes if you eat too much at one time. Secondly, think about pairing your fruit with a source of protein or healthy fat. Things like nuts, seeds, or some unsweetened yogurt can really help. This combination can slow down how quickly the sugar from the fruit is absorbed, which helps to lessen the glycemic response. And lastly, a really helpful habit is to regularly monitor your blood glucose levels after you eat different kinds of fruits. This can give you valuable insight into your own personal tolerance and empower you to make the most informed choices for your health. So, to wrap things up in our conclusion, there's no doubt that fruits are incredibly nutritious. However, it's also clear that certain types can really push blood sugar levels in the wrong direction for older adults, especially if they're not eaten with a bit of mindfulness. Being aware of which fruits are high glycemic and always practicing moderation are absolutely key to enjoying all the wonderful benefits of fruit without risking those unwanted glucose spikes. Hopefully, this knowledge helps empower seniors to make smarter choices which in turn supports better metabolic health and overall well-being as they enjoy their golden years. And finally, our call to action. If you found this list helpful and maybe a bit eye-opening, please do share it with your friends and family. It could really help them make more informed choices too. We'd also love to hear from you, so feel free to leave a comment below with your thoughts or any questions you might have. And don't forget to subscribe for more essential health tips that are tailored specifically for older adults. Let's take control of our blood sugar together.